Welcome to Divine Femme TV. This is another channeled message for the Divine Feminine Collective. As you know, feminine essence, masculine essence is not gender specific. So please just take this however it resonates. I felt called to bring through a message. I haven't updated this particular playlist in a while, but I know that there are several different waves of beings going through this ascension process. And now that I can say the experience here, having walked through the fire, the death, the rebirth, the existential crisis, the dark night of the soul, many dark nights of the soul, realizing and recognizing divine nature that lives through me and as me. I share this only because there are some pivotal points on this journey that can feel very dark, and I am feeling called to illuminate them by sharing the direct experience that happened over here. So this very specifically is for those that are going through dark night of the soul, an ego death, and experiencing an existential crisis, which borders on like nihilism and just depression. It feels like depression, right? It's hard for me to put myself exactly in those shoes, but I'm going to try to put words to this experience to the best of my ability in hopes that it brings whoever's listening to this a sense of peace and a sense of remembrance within. You already feel on a soul level, even despite the despair, that everything is happening for a larger reason. You can sense this on a soul level. Many are gravitating to Divine Femme TV, my channel transmissions, or this particular playlist after experiencing some kind of breakup or some kind of devastating event that leaves them feeling lost, confused, depressed, betrayed, abandoned. Maybe all of the above, maybe none of the above. Maybe it doesn't feel that dramatic, but it's just lingering. The thing about activating your divine feminine magnetism and coming home to the truth of who and what you truly are, which is the divine essence within you fully expressed in human form, you activate your magnetism. It's just a natural byproduct. And you become a sacred mirror for others. And so I am humbly and gratefully reminded of this every single day, whether I'm at the grocery store or at the pool or at the gym or in a parking lot or on a Zoom call, whether it's clients or complete strangers in the checkout line. We are meant to be sacred mirrors for each other. And so what prompted this message today was a conversation that was a quote-unquote random event. We already know that's not a thing. And this person was admittedly opening up, a complete stranger opening up. This is what happens as well as you embody more of your divinity. You become a lighthouse and a beacon for others, and others will naturally be guided to the frequency that you're emitting. And you get to be a lighthouse and a way shower and an activator and a sacred mirror for them. There is no superiority here as far as levels in this collective expansion, this mass awakening that we're going through. We've all agreed on a soul level. Some are going to be leading, some are going to be a wave or two behind, but the soul has agreed to this. prior to incarnating. So it's actually all very beautifully interwoven as this collective agreement of how the souls that are here to awaken into the divinity that they are, which in truth you've never been asleep, you've just been pretending to be asleep, right? You've been a soul having amnesia. You've been the divine having amnesia, forgetting that you are already divine. And you begin to see through that during this process of awakening. And in truth, everyone that is going through these different waves, like right now at the time of this recording, I believe it's November 19th. I'm not exactly sure. It's the 19th or the 20th. It's the new moon in Scorpio, and there's a lot of rebirth energy. I shared about this today in Embody the Empress call. If this is something that resonates with you, you might want to check that out. That is my membership. You can find that wherever you're listening to this. There should be a link. This is for those that resonate with the divine feminine journey, that are awakening and being called to embody their divinity, their divine sovereignty, taking their power back. And so what I was going to share was, before I get sidetracked, what was I sharing? I just lost it. It will come back to me. Okay, there it is. So we collectively agreed to remember our divinity in waves. So there is no hierarchy here. There is no superiority here. We're all meant to be sacred mirrors, activating each other. And right now, at the time of this recording, as we are winding down 2025, this 9 year of endings, there's a lot of karmic completions for many that are in the thick of this, so to speak. They've been triggered and activated into their dark night of the soul. There's also a wave that is right now stepping into fully anchoring in new earth frequency into their fifth dimensional timeline, and are stepping into whole new beginnings where your frequency literally is attracting now effortlessly versus having to try to force things or chase things or seek things. Your frequency just naturally is attracting everything for you and to you in order for you to live out your highest Dharma timeline. This is one of the signs that you are shifting in your timeline as you begin to effortlessly magnetize in through the zero effort of your own opportunities and people and situations, relationships, collaborations, partnerships, and all the things that align you to your highest divine timeline. So I'm getting sidetracked. I don't know why I was going down that rabbit hole, other than there are different waves moving through this ascension timeline, and collectively we're all rising together. And so the pull to record this message, the call, the divine urgency to hit record on this was to bring through a very specific message for those that are finding themselves going through an existential crisis, dark night of the soul. Maybe you recently experienced a breakup or some kind of sudden loss that has left you feeling lonely or abandoned or betrayed or unlovable, and it's sending you spiraling into, what feels like this void. It's not the same as the sacred void that I talk about as you're transitioning into your 5D timeline. This initial void, it is earmarked oftentimes by a deep, dark, existential crisis and dark night of the soul. It's different than the sacred void and the sacred in-between that I talk about when you're transitioning between 4D and 5D consciousness. So I experienced this. This was the experience that happened for me really hit the fan in early 2023. And so I'm here to just shine a light and offer a little guidance if it resonates. Hopefully, whoever's meant to find this, I already trust and know that I wouldn't have been guided to hit record on this if someone wasn't meant to hear it. And so randomly, which we already know there's no such thing as coincidences, I had this conversation today by a being who is going through a dark night of the soul, existential crisis, and completely opened up to me out of the blue and just started sharing that he was going through a breakup and really was going through like some kind of like nihilism and existential crisis and like nothing matters. And so I wanted to shine a little light on this process in particular as the egoic mind is beginning to dissolve, and things that maybe you were attached to in some way in order to give a sense of safety or security, such maybe a relationship, for example, I'm going to use that as the metaphor here, suddenly get ripped away from you, and it sends you spiraling into an existential crisis and dark night of the soul. This is a catalyst that is very common for this ascension timeline, this ascension journey, because ultimately you can't take any attachments or anything with you into your highest timeline. And this doesn't mean you're not destined to have loving connections and things like that on this journey. You are, and you know that in your soul, but it cannot come from fear-based consciousness or any kind of performance or needing to prove your worth or needing anything externally outside of you in order to give you a false sense of safety, security, validation, approval, or make you feel lovable or worthy. And if something can be taken away from you and cause that kind of abandonment and feeling of loss and suffering, not to say that those are not natural human emotions, they are. If someone were to exit your experience, it's a natural human emotion to grieve. It's a natural human process to grieve if someone were to pass away and things like that. So we're not denying humanity. But any place we have put power in something or someone outside of us, or put anything on a pedestal, or are attached to any place that your worthiness, your sense of belonging, your sense of wholeness or completeness is contingent on anything outside of you, that is some form of an attachment. And so what this does is it forces you to go inward. And that's really what happens here at this phase. Like the breakdown, the breakup, the wound is really where the light enters, to quote Rumi, right? And even though it is excruciating, and a breakup just in and of itself, even not on a spiritual ascension timeline, already feels like a death, let alone if you're going through a deep, dark night of the soul. So it can feel very heavy. And this period lasted almost a year. It was over 6 months, and it was going through phases. It wasn't like always heavy, but there were definitely moments where as the egoic mind is dissolving, it will latch on to this meaninglessness and this nothing matters from a very depressive, nihilistic state. And I wanted to shine a light on this particular phase of this dismantling of the egoic identity, because ultimately this is what's happening. We have been identified on this human journey as the small sense of self, the separate sense of self, this identity entity that you think that you are. And in order for you to remember who you truly are, oftentimes the egoic mind dissolves first. Sometimes it's spontaneous and people open up to the love that they are. It's different for everyone, but this is definitely a common kind of, I don't know what word wants to come through, a common kind of earmark for this journey is that first the egoic mind starts to dissolve, and you wake up to everything that you are not. So you start to realize that you're not your thoughts, you're not your body, you're not your mind. And at first the ego just starts to spiral out of control and will fall into this depressive state and really low not that this is bad, but it's just low. It's not good or bad. It's just part of the dismantling this low vibe kind of frequency that nothing matters, and you're just going through a very depressive state, and nobody understands it, and you really can't talk to anybody about it. So you end up going through this period of like isolation and solitude, which is also divinely guided. You will be naturally called to be by yourself or go into hermit mode, spend more time in solitude and isolation, because the soul is calling you home. The soul is calling you home to the truth of what you are, which is divine love at your core. And without going down that rabbit hole and elaborating on that in this transmission, I want to get back to shining a light on this very pivotal moment when you do go through this dark night of the soul and experience all of this meaninglessness. So as this person was sharing with me that it was pretty bad, and it was just like he was very open and vulnerable, sharing that there was a sense of meaninglessness and nihilistic and all the things, and it was very hard. And I just wanted to address the meaninglessness, because I'm trying to put myself back into that remembrance of that. There is no past, right? There is no future. I'm only here now. So when you start to live in the present, it's hard to even like put yourself back there. So I was like, I better record this now because it's coming through and there's a reason for it. I'm trying to put myself back into the experience of what it felt like. Aside from the fact that you feel like you're going crazy, you can't really talk to anybody about it, or they would also think that you're going crazy. You're being guided to go inward. You're being guided to solitude. You're being guided to connect inwardly with your own essence. And I will share more transmissions of what usually comes after this as you begin to open up and the Kundalini energy is beginning to rise and all that kind of stuff. But this sense of meaninglessness, in truth, nothing inherently has meaning, right? So the egoic mind will get a hold of this and get all depressed about it and be like, well, everything's meaningless, nothing matters. So, a lot of people can go down this rabbit hole, and it can get pretty dark for a pretty long time, where everything's just meaningless, nothing matters, and they just like throw in the towel on life and all of that. And everybody's journey is unique, so there's no judgment here. I'm just sharing because I've obviously been through this, and I work with clients all the time that go through all of these phases that I'm sharing with you on this playlist. Nothing inherently has meaning other than what we give it. But one thing that came through when this was the experience that was happening over here is, nothing matters inherently. Nothing has inherent meaning other than the meaning that you give it, but everything is significant. And this is the message that when I was on my walk here outside in the rain just a little bit ago that came through, that I felt guided to share. Nothing matters. We give a lot of meaning. The ego loves to give a lot of meaning to things and make everything feel way more important than it is, and judge it and compare it and put it on a pedestal, or take it off the pedestal and give it less meaning, and all the things, like all this hierarchy, this better or worse, and all the things, and the good and the bad and all that. That's the dualistic mind, and that's the egoic mind, and the ego loves to do that. But nothing really has inherent meaning other than the meaning that we give it. While that is being said, everything is significant, right down to the raindrop that nourishes and the soil and helps the seedling grow, right down to the honeybee that pollinates the flower, right down to the sun that rises and sets. Like everything is significant, even the circumstances that randomly occurred today to bring myself and this other person together. so that I could illuminate and shine a light and offer him a sense of just hold space from a compassionate place, from someone who's been there. So, he could see that there is light at the end of the tunnel, that it does get better, that he's not crazy, right? Like this is actually happening, and it's all divinely guided and for a high purpose, quote unquote purpose, right? And this is our highest purpose, is our own ascension, our own embodiment of our divine truth. This is our highest contribution to humanity. And so everything is significant. The only thing that matters is what we personally give meaning to. And everybody can give different meaning to different things, if you've noticed. And so some things carry a lot of meaning to somebody, and that same thing might carry no meaning to somebody else. So the meaning that we attach to things is very subjective, but everything is significant. The way you smile at a stranger in the grocery store, the way you talk with somebody and you lighten their day for 5 minutes, the way your puppy, your dog looks at you when you're having your morning coffee, the last few minutes of the sunset before it goes down, the rain, the bees, the birds, the trees, everything has its place. Everything has its significance. And when you look at nature, the ultimate sacred feminine, you can see that everything has its place, that everything is significant, right? Like everything is so interconnected and actually dependent on each other in order to even exist. You can see this, right? Like the honeybees need to exist in order for everything to operate the way that nature is operating, right? And this goes with everything in nature, like right down to the ecosystems that exist in the ocean, right? Like everything has this significance to it and this interconnectedness to it. And when you look at nature, you can see the natural cycles of death and rebirth. And I think this is some very timely message to be bringing through right now, as I think I'm recording this on the new moon in Scorpio, which is all about alchemy, transformation, death, and rebirth. And when you look at nature, it's the perfect example. You can see a dead tree and right next to it sprouting a new plant right next to it. You can go for a walk in the forest and see new life growing on a dead tree trunk, right? Like the decay of an animal that passed away nourishes the foliage of the forest, right? And so I would actually encourage anybody that's resonating with this, if this is where you're feeling you're at on this journey, and it is very healing to be in nature and go for a walk or be outside in the fresh air and things like that as much as you can, as nature is the perfect example of this cycle that you're going through right now. But every death is a new beginning. Every death has its rebirth, right? And so this crucifixion, so to speak, dying to your attachments, will lead to the resurrection. And it doesn't help it doesn't help make it feel better when you're going through it. And that's not the purpose of recording this, I suppose. It's every soul came to have their own experience of this divine awakening. And there is beauty in the breakdown. And so this message isn't to alleviate that or try to take that away from someone that's experiencing that, because that is part of the beauty of this beautiful, sacred rebirth that is occurring. But I can share from being on the other side of it that he asked me this, so does it get easier? Does it get better? And I just had to smile, because I can't even put into words. There are no words. for what it is like when you remember the truth of who you are, and you are a full sovereign being, fully embodied in your divinity, and you don't need anything outside of yourself to fulfill you or to make you whole or complete. And you just get to witness life unfolding from a higher vantage point, where everything magnetizes to you and you don't have to cling or chase or run away from or grasp onto anything, because you're so anchored in your truth and in your peace. And you're so anchored in your, what I call your sacred neutrality. Doesn't mean life doesn't unfold. It doesn't mean life doesn't happen. It doesn't mean that you don't experience 3D things. Like, you're still going to experience life. But when you're living present in the moment and no longer identified with the separate sense of self, and you get to, there's just a living as the divine essence that you are, and it just gets deeper and deeper, where your permanent, I guess, state of being, for lack of a better word, feels effortless. And you become first the eye of the storm. And then as you alchemize that, that's kind of like one of the last, as you anchor in peace, even though 3D reality has been recalibrating around you for a while, and you've gone through it, and you've come home to the truth of who you are, and you anchor in this peace, there's a shift that takes place where now your frequency is leading. And this will come as you're entering into your 5D timeline. And I can't say when that will be, and it's not a linear process and or anything like that. I'm just putting words to very common things that happen on this Ascension timeline. And right now there is a wave of beings that are fully stepping into their new Earth timeline, that have gone through this rebirth process. And that's why I feel called to share this, because the next wave coming up, the message is yes, it gets to be way better than you ever believed possible. You get to come home to the truth of who you are and live fully anchored in your divinity while being fully human simultaneously. You get to experience your natural innate gifts and your talent and your wisdom and the divine power within you, fully embodied in this vessel, which is the sacred technology that is waking up, that everything happens through this vessel, this body, the sacred technology. And you just have such a reverence for life in each and now moment, not because you're doing something special. It's just how can I share this? Each moment is special. So there's nothing that's put on a pedestal anymore as if you need something outside of yourself in order to feel better, or you're not chasing the next dopamine high anymore. You're not chasing this kind of, egoic kind of success anymore. You're not sacrificing your life away to prove yourself to someone. All of that falls away, and you just get to be fully authentically you. And as that happens and your frequency rises, you attract others into your experience that are also authentically them. And then you get to play and create with them in the 5D as everyone is living authentically their truth and sharing their gifts and their magic with the world, and no longer living from fear, no longer living trapped in the egoic mind, in the prison in their mind that's created this whole shit show in the mind of how everything has to go. And you get to be free, living in the unknown, flowing. It's beautiful. And looking in hindsight back through those dark night of the soul phases and that deep ego death and existential crisis and those moments and months of nothingness and all of that, there's no desire to change 1 ounce of it, it all plays such a beautiful, like, unfolding. And that's why our soul came here. Our soul came here to play and to dance with this divine expression that we are, as we are. Watching a movie. This is coming up. I was watching a movie on Netflix. I don't know if it was Netflix, probably a few weeks ago. And I think it was called Infinite Storm. I don't know why I was drawn to that movie, but one of the last lines that Naomi Watts, that Naomi Watts said at the end was, life is an infinite storm of beauty. So she was having a conversation with someone in a diner. I don't want to spoil the end, so I won't tell you the rest of it if you haven't seen it. I don't even know if that's your thing. It's not even the kind of movie I would normally watch, right? But anyways, I did. I don't know why I'm sharing this right now, other than the fact that her last line was, so I won't spoil it for you. I just say the last line. I already said it, so I kind of already ruined that. But she said, life is an infinite storm of beauty. And wow, it kind of is. So I hope this message brought some sense of peace or something to your heart and to your soul, to know that you're not alone, you're not crazy, there is light at the end of the tunnel. This is all very purposeful and divinely guided. What has broken you open is where the light comes in. You're being guided into solitude or isolation or celibacy and all the things during this process, because your soul is ready to experience who and what you truly are, which is divine love and divine truth at your core. And so the process looks different for everyone. There are people that awaken that probably never go through a dark night of the soul, but there are a lot of people that do. I think Eckhart Tolle talks about this a lot as well, that suffering is necessary on the journey, and he went through immense suffering before he had a spontaneous awakening. And so it will often be something that catalyzes this into motion, whether that be a breakup or some kind of traumatic event, but it's a doorway into fully living as a free and sovereign soul. And you are divinely guided through this process. You are the infinite intelligence that's guiding the whole thing, which is how you've resonated on this message to begin with, because this message is intentionally channeled for those that are meant to receive this. And so if you felt drawn to click on it, this is not a coincidence. Divine infinite intelligence is running the whole show, and that divine infinite intelligence lives within you, lives within me. In truth, there is no you and me. There is no other. That is separation, consciousness. In truth, we are one. We are divine love, experiencing ourselves as 8 million or billion different expressions, however many people there are on the planet. But ultimately, everything is an expression of the one, not just humans, right? And this is what is seen on this journey. As the egoic mind dissolves and you wake up to all that you are not. You're not the body, you're not the thoughts, you're not the personality, you're not the name you were given, you're not your emotional patterns, you're not your projections in your mind, you're not your limiting beliefs, you're not your personality, you're none of those things. And that will be seen through. And during this process, it will feel like a dark night of the soul often, or ego death, and you're being emptied out, so to speak. You're being emptied out of everything that you are not, and that can feel very empty. It can feel very depressive. The egoic mind will latch on, and it'll feel very meaningless, and it will feel very hopeless, and it'll feel very, like nothing matters. And you can see this as being emptied out, so that you can be filled with what you truly are, which is love. And this is when you begin to open up and awaken at the heart level, which is already happening simultaneously. It's not a linear step process. It's not like you open up, you awaken at the level of the mind, and then, okay, now that's done. Check that box off. Now we're going to awaken at the level of heart. Perfect. Check. Now we're going to awaken at the level of the gut, and no self shift and no veil. Check. No, that doesn't work that way linearly. I can't say that word. It doesn't work in a linear fashion like that. It happens simultaneously, but in kind of like as you're purging a lot of emotions and denser energies that have been stored, you're already awakening at the heart level. And that's also what's been triggered. So, but you will begin to really be filled more with the divine love that you are. You already are it. So I know this sounds like a paradox. You can't be filled with what you already are, but this is how it is experienced. It's experienced as if you begin to fill, you begin to wake down. It's not a waking up. Then it becomes a waking down as you no longer are attached at the level of the mind. It is the identity of the separate self. You begin to awaken down into the body, and this becomes an embodiment journey. So you wake down into the level of heart, and the heart expands, and you begin to know who you truly are, what you truly are, which is divine love. And you begin to see that in yourself and in others. And you begin to awaken to the oneness and the fullness and the abundance that you are. And so what once felt very empty and pointless and meaningless and like nothing matters, you begin to experience the fullness of life in each and every now breath and each and every now moment. And there's nothing more exquisitely beautiful than that. And so I'll end it on this. Nothing really matters, but everything is significant. So I hope this message finds you well, and until next time, namaste.